understanding. It was all rote memory. So with that, I'm going to say lights, camera, fractions, and turn it over to you, Annalise.
Thank you, Mark. So I am Annalise Record. I live here in Concord, New Hampshire. I'm an independent elementary math consultant. I was a fifth grade teacher for 13 years, and then I became math coach, K-5, for 4 years. And then my husband got a new job, and we were moving a couple hours away. And I had an amazing opportunity with some friends of mine to encourage me to go off on my own. And so Braining Camp brought me on board many months ago now, because they were interested not just in how the Braining Camp app can work for you, but the mathematics behind it, right? How can we help move all of our students forward on their math journeys? But I know that I took math classes all the way through college. I always thought I was good at math because I could memorize and I could follow procedures and I could do all the steps. So I thought I was great at math, but it's really only to the last 8 years or so that my math journey kind of deepened, and I really understand now the progression from early grade levels all the way through. And that would help me be a much better teacher now than when I was teaching the grade 5, because I didn't know the expertise needed for early numeracy and how the foundations are set in the younger grade levels for the older grade levels. So if you're joining me today and you are a primary grade level teacher, please stay tuned and even come to next month's part 2, because you can see how what you're setting for a foundation will help them down the road. And if you're an upper elementary teacher, I'd love for you to hang out too. This is going to be focused on K3, but it is all the foundational knowledge that if our students come to us in grade 4 with all this content under their belts, they'll go so much further and farther than we ever thought possible. So feel free to join in the chat. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to chime in at any point. I'll be sharing lots of information with you tonight, and then we'll have some questions and answers at the end as well. So again, I just wanted to welcome you to this evening, and thrilled to be here with you tonight and to have a wonderful hour together exploring the world of fractions. So my consulting phrase is that there's nothing elementary about teaching elementary math. Honestly, but when I became the K-5 math coach, when I really realized I had to learn how do you teach a child about the number 5 and the quantity, because I had no idea. I didn't realize my whole world opened up. The whole world of early numeracy is amazing. And so feel free, I want you to know that on the online community, Facebook and in Twitter, I do online community learning and being a part of Facebook groups with the most amazing, generous people. You can feel free to email me at any point and reach out at any time. The Facebook profile that I have with that growth mindset tree, I only post math things. So you won't see anything other than math things if you follow that feed. So, and my email, aer@annaliserecord.com. Feel free to email me at any point. So first of all, I want to let you know that by participating tonight, if you aren't already a Braining Camp member, you can get 45 days for free and to try it out. So you would go to brainingcamp.com, you would click on the word redeem, and the enter code would be first half. And once you enter that code, you would have that for 45 days. It is only good today. So if you're watching this as a recording, that won't work for you anymore. But you can get a free 1 month through the Braining Camp site though. All right, so my goals tonight, I want to focus on the mathematics. So there are several webinars that we have. There's one even coming up, I believe next week, that will be introducing the apps and introducing Braining Camp. But I want to focus on the mathematics tonight. So you'll be seeing me manipulate the virtual manipulatives, but really I'm focusing on the math and how we can use those tools. I'll be going through the development of fraction concepts from kindergarten through 3rd grade. I'll be leaving the 4th grade to 6th grade to next month's in January, part 2. So just to let you know that foundation will be there. But again, it's good for all of us to know all of the grade level expectations so that we can know where the kids are coming from and where they're going to. And finally, I'll be focusing on how Braining Camp's virtual manipulatives, their amazing suite of currently 16 apps, can help us build the foundational thought processes of our kids with fractions. So my agenda is to begin at the K2 foundational. I had not realized till relatively recently that the foundations of fractions are in K2 and they're in the geometry standards. So we'll be going through the pattern block app and the geoboard to show how that can be setting a foundation for the future. And then in grade 3, I'll be covering the conceptual understanding of what fractions are, as well as a little bit of comparing fractions and equivalency of what's expected in 3rd grade for that. And the apps for those will be the fraction tiles, fraction circles, Cuisenaire rods, and number lines. So, and then finally at the end, we'll have some a question and answer time for the K3 content. We'll save the grade 4 to 6 content for part 2. So first of all, I just want to begin by asking you with this question here. 4/5 plus 3/5 equals an unknown. What emotion do you feel right now? Is it this, like, oh, I love fractions, I really find them fun? Or is it, oh my gosh, get me out of here. I don't never liked fractions. I see this when I am presenting in the districts that I consult with when we do math nights. I see the parents' faces go, okay, I'm out. This is when I didn't get math and where I began thinking that I was not a math person, which of course is not true. We all have math brains that can learn and grow. And I've met many, many teachers that teach primary grade levels that when I give a fraction problem, I know it's that element of fear because the way we taught it traditionally was not having understanding. So many people weren't able to learn it and thought that meant they weren't able to learn it. And that's not true at all. It's how we were teaching it, right? So let's think about the traditional way students go about adding these fractions. It's the way that I taught in my classroom when I was teaching 5th grade, where I wanted them to understand that you can add the numerators, but not the denominators, right? And I did try showing them with concrete pictorial ways why you can't add denominators, but I didn't know what I know now about fractions. So when you think about this thinking, they would add the numerators and get a 7. They would remember, oh, I don't add denominators, so it's a 5. But then you have 7/5, and that feels improper, like it's not okay. We don't use that term anymore, improper, because of course it's a perfectly fine fraction. It just the value is greater than 1. And so and then to transfer 7/5 into a mixed number is a whole set of procedures. And we lose a lot of our students along that journey. And in fact, fractions are a gateway concept for our kids. It forms a barrier for a lot of our students when we only teach fractions for that rote memorization and procedures. They don't connect it to what they know and have deeper understanding. And so it never gets mastered. And as the grade levels go on, the content gets harder. And we are literally barring many of our students from the learning and the higher learning mathematics. So we need to do things differently. So if I just take for a moment to think about how we could add 8 plus 5, just one of the many ways we can is to break apart that 5 to make a 10, to make a nearest friendlier number. So if I were to put out on a 10 frame 8 cubes and 5 cubes, and then move 2 of those cubes to fill the 10 frame, I can rename the expression of 8 plus 5 to equal 10 plus 3. That's a lot easier for my brain. Can we use that same thinking with fractions? So if I were to ask about 4/5 and 3/5, what if, now these are Cuisenaire rods, so the length of those rods are in units. And what if I thought about 4/5 and 3/5 and I broke apart the 3/5 into chunks that I could give part of it to make a whole, because that's a friendlier number. So I can actually rename 4/5 plus 3/5 into 1 plus 2/5. And I didn't have to think about adding numerators, not denominators. I didn't have to think about changing from a fraction over 1 into a mixed number, right? And I understand why. This will open the door and provide access to so many more of our students. They don't have to have the same journey as most of the people. 80% of the people that I meet in my consulting work tell me how much their math journey was fearful and it had words like hatred and despise. And it's a whole part of the self-efficacy. We need to change this. And so when we think about number sense, now we begin talking about numbers. I love this quote from Howden. Just want to read that for a second. And just words that are standing out to you. So that number sense is that intuition about numbers and the relationships. It develops gradually. It's not just one lesson and you've got it and let's move on. And it's a result of exploring numbers, having the opportunity to explore and to visualize, to see things in a variety of contexts and a variety of representations. And then we can relate them in ways that are not limited to the algorithms, right? So this early numeracy here is parallel to the fraction journey as our students enter in grade 3 formally. The same thing we do with our early numeracy concepts are parallel to our beginning fractional journey as well. So that's what I'm going to be sharing with you tonight. Part of the way I'm going to facilitate tonight is to do what are called share codes. And share codes are a way in the Braining Camp app for us to have something on the screen with text and visuals, and then share a code with our students that they can then type in that code. They'll be brought to that app, and that's going to be on the screen. and then they're able to manipulate as much as they want. Now, it's not like a Google document format where we could watch them live doing that, but it is a beginning where they have that on the screen. They can then manipulate the objects and send a share code back to you so you can get that communication. So what I'd like to do, I'm going to show you this right now. It's a tiny URL. I will put this in the chat bar for you, this link, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. I have made it so that you have to make a copy so that no one can go in and change my original. So I'm going to just put this in the chat bar for you, and then you should be able to just click on it, and then it will bring you right to that. Oh, I guess maybe in webinar mode I can't. It is a tinyurl.com braining camp fractions K3. When you type that into a chat bar, I'm sorry, if you type it into your web browser, it's going to make you make a copy. So this is going to be your own copy now that you can feel free to change in any way that you want. It's going to be your own copy of this. So what you can see on here are the concepts I want to go over tonight. And I wasn't kidding you. This K3 is a whole world of understanding, right? This is the agenda tonight. And I have these share codes to help me facilitate sharing with you on the screen, saving some time, as well as you moving forward, having these codes as well. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Braining Camp site. So this is the Braining Camp app. You'll notice there are 16 apps. I'm going to begin by going into pattern blocks. Now, pattern blocks are a phenomenal way for our students to be building shapes and to be learning about these shapes. There are a variety of things. If you've not seen a Braining Camp app before, I just want to quickly show you that these items over here are the manipulatives. Most of the apps have them over here on the left, but we can drag them out into the middle of the screen. I don't care for this background of these triangles at the moment. I'd rather not have that on the screen right now, and we can toggle that on and off by having this here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag out one of these manipulatives. So here is the hexagon. Now you can make any of these be thought of as being a whole, but typically in the activities that I know I did in my classroom that I find most powerful is to make this one be a whole to begin with, so that when I can drag out, you could drag out and drop some manipulatives. I also can, once I put one out, I can just click on the button and more will appear. And so you're able to just go ahead and drag and drop these items there, right? And so I also want to show you that when you click on items within the apps, different apps give you different options. In this particular app, I can rotate it. So I have a button that allows me to rotate it around. If I wanted to do a flip button in one click, I could do that as well. And then what I'm going to be able to do is I'm going to be able to compose different kinds of shapes and make pictures with my app. So this is the pattern block app. I was exposed to this in a consultant came to my district in northern New Hampshire, in Berlin, New Hampshire, named Tom Schurston. And he was the first one that introduced my brain to the idea that math could be taught visually. I really did not understand that. And my brain took a while to understand this and to see it visually. So I just want to tell you that that productive struggle of your brain saying what's going on is an important part of the journey for your brain. And I've gone through it myself, and I am now a visual learner with math. I didn't think I ever was before, and I built those neural pathways in my brain. And so this is that pattern block app, and I want to just now, I'm going to go to the share code screen, and I'm going to copy this code right here. So I want to talk to you about how we can be setting a foundation in K1 for these fractions. So what does that mean? Kindergarten and first grade with fractions? That seems kind of crazy. So let's go ahead, and what I'm going to do is I have that share code copied, and right down here at the bottom of the screen under the apps is this share code rectangle. So I'm just going to paste that code right into that box. When I press go, it brings me into the app that I was in when I pressed that share code button to get that code. Whatever's on my screen gets shared with that code. So here we have in kindergarten and first grade, kids are going to be building pictures, right? They can use their pattern blocks to be building any kind of pictures they want. You'll notice here, they could, build a flower. Many times students gravitate toward patterns. They'll do patterns with the blocks. They can be putting them together to make larger shapes. And even this one here, right? They can build a triangle out of these smaller shapes. So the idea that we're using smaller units to build a new unit is just what the beginning fraction understanding is, that we're going to have these unit fractions building the understanding of fractions. So by having our students explore within this pattern block app and build us things is going to be building, and of course, concretely as well, having things actually in person, and as well as the virtual manipulatives. The virtual and the physical are both wonderful. It's not an either or, it's a both and. We want kids using both of these experiences kinesthetically as well as in this virtual way. And so on this screen here, there also are in the bottom here, there is a way to make these transparent. So if you wanted to work on putting some smaller shapes on top of some larger ones, to be able to see how you can be having that ability to see what are the same, right? Getting to forbear for of equivalent fractions even as well. But in the bottom right-hand corner, you also have these work mats. So every app has its own set of work mats, and please explore as much as you can. I keep finding hidden gems that I didn't know were there, and I've been working in these apps for months. It's just, they're amazing. There's so much we can do with these. So within this app of pattern blocks, there is a fraction mat, which means that the pattern blocks we have here are super for fractions specifically. So if we define this hexagon as the whole, then these right here would be, well, this is two equal sized pieces. And so those are halves. And these are three equal sized pieces, the rhombi, so those are thirds. These triangles here, they can fit together to make the hexagon. Those are 6 sixths, right? And so having a task that students can be all the ways you can build this hexagon. Now I limited it at the beginning for halves, thirds, and sixths. They really work well together with their equivalencies. But there is fourths and twelfths as well, the brown and the purple pieces. If you buy these physically, you can buy an extra set that has the purple and the brown. So I loved having those in my 5th grade classroom as well. But the idea is that students can be exploring and building these shapes using other smaller shapes. And it begins that thought process of we can build larger units, just as we do when we take 10 ones and make a new unit of a 10 and 10 tens to make a unit of a 100. Similarly, in fractions, we are building new units from these smaller ones. So that is, playing around there with the fraction. Just again, there are those work mats. So I was in the basic one first. You first come into the basic, and then I went to the fraction work mat beneath there. Now, as we also talk about grades 1 and 2 now, so the beginning in K1, we're building and we're constructing. We are physically building things with those as well. And so now I want to show you the part of grade 1 and 2 where we want students physically partitioning. Another important foundational idea of fractions is that we want them partitioning into equal size pieces, and we limit it in 1st grade to halves and fourths. So I want to show you the GeoBoard app. This is going to allow the students to be able to construct. So again, I've previously put something on the screen, text and objects, and I've just put the share code button and got this code. I'll show you how I do that in just one second. When I go into the Braining Camp app, again, I go back out to apps, and I am putting that code down below in this share code box. I just say paste, and when I press go, it brings me right to the app that I was in, as well as what I had on the screen when I pressed that share button. At this point, if I shared that code with all of you, going into here, I can't see what you're doing. It's not that the teacher can see what the students are doing, but you could do some work on there and share it back with me. You get a new code, and then I'd be able to see what you did. So I'll show you how we're going to do that. So here I have 3 squares, and I'm saying partition it into halves. And so I can take a rubber band. So here we are, the GeoBoard. I can take that rubber band and I can just extend it down, and I've now partitioned it into 2 equal pieces. But remember, we want to do that in a variety of ways. It's not just one. I know I was guilty in my 5th grade classroom. I pretty much always did candy bars, and I did the partitions vertically. It's just like all that I did. But we do want students partitioning circles and rectangles. And of course, all squares are rectangles since they have their 4 right angles like a rectangle needs. But what if we do things like this? What if we even do it diagonally, right? If we only partition things in certain ways, then our kids get a false understanding and we have an illusion of understanding, right? So the idea, we can have students expose and share with us a variety of ways of splitting these objects. Same thing with fourths. So grade kindergarten, 1st grade and 2nd grade, we want them doing halves and fourths, and they can be doing it in just, again, in a variety of ways. And then they're just dragging these rubber bands. If you wanted to, they could use the pens. But the pens can be a little hard to draw with, particularly with younger students. And I want them to know that fractions have equal sized pieces. But let's say that I've done these, I've shown a variety of ways. Now I can share this back with you. So I can go to this share button, And your options are to copy the image, which would make a screenshot of the image that you could then paste into any kind of online communication portal for you with Seesaw or Google Classroom. And then you also could download the image to get an actual picture of it. Or what I did was I choose this orange circular one that says link or code. And that's all that I did. See that code right there. Now, this also is available to you. It's a web page. The code is the same up here as it is down below. And I find that once students are logged into Branding Camp, it's just as easy to use this share code. So I just tend to do that. This button right here will allow you to copy that code. So if I were to put that code in the chat bar, you could then click on it. When you go in the Branding Camp app, copy and paste that code, and you would see exactly this on the screen. You see how I manipulated it on the screen. So, all right, so let's just go back out again to the app screen again. So that would be first grade and second grade. We're partitioning these rectangles. We're partitioning the circle of those as well. Now I'll show you about circles. And so I did give you an activity here. I'll just show it to you for a second. I did give you an activity for thirds. And I've also given you versions for the kiddos so that the answers aren't there. So you'll find that in the Word document there for you. That in grade 2, really the changes that come up in grade 2 for fractions is the addition of the fraction thirds and the idea that we have thirds. And so I just did a variety of ways here, again, to show that thirds is not always the same shape even within it, as long as they're covering the same area. So we have the idea first of we're composing our shapes of other shapes, but then we're moving into this area understanding model of fractions, and that the area has to be the same, that they are equal. So, and I've given you that activity here with this code without the green band, so your students could do that as well. Now, we also want to be able to partition circles, which is a little more difficult, particularly with thirds. But it's worth that productive struggle, and it's worth the effort to have students try again and try again and try again, because you want to send that message that fractions mean equal-sized pieces. That is what a fraction has to be. Very often our students get caught in a cycle of, oh, I count the shaded pieces, I count the pieces in all, that's my fraction, and they pay no attention to that they're not equal-sized pieces. So those are the kind of questions on assessments that are there not to trick kids, but to see, do they really understand, right? And so in first and second grade, again, we are not showing the fractional numbers. We're talking about it in words. So we're saying this is half of the circle, and this is a fourth of the circle. Or we also can use the word quarter. So we're not saying 1/4 and putting a 1/4 fraction on the board written in numbers. In grades 1 and 2, we're talking about halves and quarters and then thirds as well. So I want to show you how I can build the thirds. So in second grade, we do go to thirds. Here is the 1/3 piece. Now, there is a way to show the numbers. You just toggle it down below here on the left. So I press the button fractions down in the bottom. See how the numbers do appear? But I'm preferring to have them off because I want the students to have that thinking about, well, how many of those make up the whole? And that's what the size of the piece is. And then how many do I have? I don't want it to do the work for them. I need them to think about that to build the conceptual understanding. So I brought over my 1/3, and I want, of course, to have 2 more thirds. So if I physically drag these out, then I want to maneuver them into a circle. Now, with the fraction circles, you can click on the object and move it, but you also can click on the edge and it will rotate around. Now, it takes a little bit of finessing, so just try that as best you can to do that. And then when you drag it closely enough, eventually an outline will appear, and when you let go, it'll snap into place. And so similarly with this one, I want to get that into place. Once you bring it close by, it'll pop in. But that was a lot of work, right? And it might be a lot of work for the young kiddos. So instead, I'm going to delete that for a second. And if I drag over one about where I want it, if I click on that again 2 more times, it'll put it right where I want it to be. So it's just a matter of getting used to the app, playing around with it, and developing the most efficient ways. But now I don't want this filled in and shaded. So there's a button. When you click on that piece, this button here will turn off the shading. So now that's going to be going away. And so now I have my 1/3, and I can talk about that as being a third of the circle. It is 1/3, but I have not shown the fraction number that comes in 3rd grade. And that is where we're headed next. We're gonna spend the rest of the time today just in 3rd grade conceptual understanding. It's amazing how much there is. All right, so that was fraction circles, but now I want to spend some time. Oh, and just one more concept. I do want to show you a little bit that also in the K2, we want to be talking about wholes and how we're defining our wholes. So we have halves, fourths, thirds, and defining the whole and what the whole is in terms of those halves, thirds, and fourths. So here you'd have one whole circle. We talk about this as being 2 halves, 4 fourths, and 3 thirds. And you'll notice by talking in that way, we're saying how many pieces we have and what the size of the piece is. This is critical. We're talking about how many pieces we have. We have 4, and we have fourths, because that's the size of our piece. And so being able to talk about fractions in that way, super helpful. It all goes back to the unit fraction. And by unit fraction, all I mean is having a numerator of 1, that you have one of those pieces. And so by saying that, it's going to be help build that foundational, I'm going to be putting that into place as we move forward in the other concepts. So let's talk about 3rd grade. Here's where we formally begin doing it. But again, your colleagues at K2, if you were an upper grade level teacher, we need the foundation set. So when they come into grade 3, we're ready to hit the ground running. So I'm going to go into fraction tiles. It's a very popular manipulative to have for fractions. And so I'm going to put that share code in here. And we have our fraction tiles. So what I did was I did turn off the numbers again, because those fraction tiles that have the numbers printed on them on that side, it's doing the work for the kids. The kids are not having to think, how many do I have and what are the size of the pieces? So at all costs in the conceptual understanding, we want kids to do that construction themselves. In fact, I highly recommend that you do paper folding activities, making their own sets of fraction bars. Have just 8.5 by 11 paper, cut off a 1-inch strip of it, and that can become their whole. And what I did is I made hundreds of them and I put them out on the desks, and then my students will fold the paper in half. We'll talk about, are they equal size pieces? We'll say, what's the name of one of those pieces? So it's a half. And then what's the new name for our whole? Well, it's 2 of those halves. I took a class by Dr. Mahesh Sharma that, again, each of these kind of moments in time kind of changed my life a bit more. It increased my knowledge exponentially of the idea of doing that. So by folding that paper then and talking about the name of the one piece and then the new name for the whole, builds that understanding, of course. And when you get to do thirds, yeah, it's tough. But I have seen 3rd graders do it perfectly because they've tried over and over again. Of course, in math, we want to set the foundation of persevering, and that productive struggle isn't a bad thing. They need to have the message that it means equal sized pieces. So they're going to fold their paper like a ribbon, and ended up being in thirds. I'd come over and I would check, and if it wasn't exactly 3 thirds, they'd redo it. I would give them a different piece of paper. I mean, it's just, and then when we get to fourths, you'd fold it in half and then half again. It's not just trying to fold it at first, trying to get equal sized pieces. That's going to set a foundation for everything else. So, and in fact, when you get to fifths, I wouldn't do it, right? Dr. Sharma was like, that's sadistic. Why would you do that? So, but by that point, they have the understanding you'll get 5 equal sized pieces. One piece is named 1/5. The new name for the whole is 5/5. So the idea here of building these walls with these fractions and being able to think about, well, there are 3 of those equal sized pieces, so it's third. You could even give them some true false statements or have them generate them. And I just want to hammer home, take your time. You don't have to cover in 3rd grade fractions of halves, thirds, fourths, fifths, eighths, ninths. You don't have to do that. Take your time to build the understanding with halves, thirds, and fourths. Then we can build from there, right? So having that foundation that you can take your time, have kids give you phrases that are true and false. You can sort it right there on the screen. Super important to slow down, take your time, and allow them to build those understandings that they need. So, so then within this here, I wanted to show you that we can, think about the definition formally of a fraction is that it is made into equal size pieces of some number of pieces. And then a number of the numerator is the number of those pieces that we have, the pieces. It's not, I know for myself, it was like, count the number of pieces that are shaded, how many are there in all, there becomes your fraction. But that unfortunately causes problems for kids because they end up just again counting those pieces and not thinking about the equal size pieces. And then what happens when we have fractions over 1? they think that fractions are only between 0 and 1. I've met so many students that think a fraction means you have to be between 0 and 1. In fact, they don't even understand that fractions are numbers. So we've got to be able to start in 3rd grade, the understanding that fractions are numbers. We can count by fractions, and that these are actually numbers that can exist on a number line. And so by understanding that we have that number of pieces of those pieces that we have in all, I want to show you the work mat in these fraction tiles of the wall. So what's really cool is that I had learned relatively recently that when you do the share code, it shares on things on the different work mats. So I was just on the basic work mat, so I had this information here. But I also have information on the number line and the wall. So on the wall, I have this for you. So keep that in mind. That if you have any tasks for your kiddos, you could put different tasks on different work mats if it's appropriate for your content. And then when you do your share code, that one code covers whatever's on the screen on each of those work mats. So here would be the understanding that, well, what's happening here, that I have my whole. So you are limited in the numbered fraction tiles to have the whole be the big red rectangle, right? But the whole could be any of these. And you could talk about this yellow one being a one whole, and then can we make any fractions beneath it, right? And here is the wall. You can have the wall filled in completely. That's what I did. I pressed this button here and the entire wall filled in, but I toggled on and off the pieces that I didn't want shaded in. So this wall, again, is interactive, that you can be doing that. If you are an upper elementary teacher, you also can change what number is shown in each of the tiles. You get decimals and percents as well. But I prefer in the beginning explorations for it to be nothing on there. In fact, Graham Fletcher, I love his progression video on fractions. He has another video where he is sandpapering off the fraction numbers on the fraction tiles. Get off those numbers, let the kids do the thinking. But again, this is a way for us to talk about what's happening. And we would ask the students, what do you notice? And what do you wonder? And hopefully they're going to be noticing that the more pieces you have the whole cut into, the smaller the pieces are getting, right? That's a really huge understanding, because so far in their math journey, the larger the number, the bigger the value. But now it becomes the larger the number, the smaller the value. So that's very counterintuitive to what they've already known so far. Now you also have a number line work mat. So what I've done for you here is pulled out one of the fraction tiles. Now your number line right now is by, at the moment, this is set for sixths, but these arrows allow you to change that. So I can make the number line be according to right now where the whole is. If I then have a number line go into halves, you can see it lining up to the half, the third, all the way down to the 12ths. So here we are in this 3rd grade journey. We're going to be starting to move now into a linear representation of fractions on a number line. It's one of the expectations that kids understand that the idea of unit fractions and partitioning into equal sized pieces, but it also exists as a number on the number line. This is hugely important. And so this work mat of the number line is really helpful to have. Now, again, this is within the fraction tiles. There are several different ways we can represent fractions in the apps in Braining Camp. And so this is the number line within the fraction tile. And so I'd also like to show you here that we can go to, I'm going to go to this code here. This is the double number line, because not only do I want students seeing the number lines like that, but I want them partitioning it themselves, right? And that's going to be some productive struggle. You have got to make sure you have them redo it if they're not neat. And they can certainly use fraction tile manipulatives to help them if that becomes a challenge for them. But whatever we do, we've got to set a foundation of those equal size pieces, right? So here we have the placing 3/4 on a number line below. And you'll notice that I use the text feature to label these. These normally have these 4 lines. You can't change these lines. So I chose to have this one be worth 0, and then 1, and then 2. So if I want to show 3/4, I actually, some students begin trying to do it in fourths, and then they realize, oh, I got to be done, right? And they're not equal size pieces. We can't let them get away with that. You got to have them redo it. And so what I suggest for students is that they can eyeball pretty easily the 1/2. So if they do the 1/2 first, what would happen if I break each half in half? Well, that's when I get my 4 pieces, right? So when students are doing fourths, I have them do it half, and then half the halves. And now what I could do is I could label, I can use my pen and I can label this as one, this is 1/4, it's this first place out of the 4. Here is the 2/4. Here is 3/4. And so that is a number existing on this number line, and is that point right on that number line. That's where 3/4 lives. It is a number, right? And so then if I have to do 5/8, well, what I can do with that is I can be thinking about, well, I can eyeball, oh, I also put the 1 over here. I'm making the students think, oh, wait a minute. So make sure when you're having them work on number lines that you change the representation on the number line. It can't always be from 0 to 1. We got to build that flexibility of understanding for them. So this one here is right in the middle of 0 and 1. So this must be the 1/2, which means that if I want to get 4 pieces, I can break each half in half, right? Which down the road, half of a half, 1/2 times of 1/2 is going to be 1/4. So you're kind of building that foundation that'll come eventually as well that we have here. So this is, and I can label this. Well, I'm not going to do it yet because I want to get to 8s. I do see I have 4 pieces, but I want 8 pieces. So if I broke every 4th in half, then I would have 8. And the process of me constructing this and paying attention to the equal size pieces, I'm going to make, that's going to be my 1/8 and then my 2/8. Whoops, that's not 2/3, 2/8. And then I have 3/8. And look what happens here. I have 4/8. So that I can see that 1/2 and 4/8, one of my simpler equivalencies we want students exposed to in grade 3, that those are the same. They are the same point on the number line, which means that they are equivalent. And now I get to my 5/8 and I could just place a marker on it. There is 5/8. But you'll notice again that thinking that I was modeling for you, the idea that I'm going to break it into 8s by going to half to 4ths to get to my 8s. That will guarantee well, not guarantee, I'm sorry, is the closest possible we can get to help our students get equal sized pieces. They can't just randomly start doing lines and expect that. So, okay, so that is within these fraction tiles. Now I'm going to show you the Cuisenaire rods. They are my favorite manipulative. And so, in fact, I do have an online workshop on Cuisenaire rods, both for K2 and also one for 3-5, where I cover fluency, problem solving, as well as the content standards with Cuisenaire rods. They are a copyright. They're trademarked by Hand to Mind. And so these color coding system here is a trademark of Hand to Mind. So you'll usually see Cuisenaire with a little R for the trademark symbol, and that's why. So they own that trademark. So what if you have not heard of Cuisenaire rods, I'm willing to bet they're in your closets collecting dust. These are not a new manipulative. They've been around for decades. But they are amazing. And in fact, I believe that they're the biggest tool we have to help move our students from counting phase of reasoning into additive thinking, and then from additive thinking into multiplicative reasoning. And then also ratio and proportions, it's wonderful as well. So what I have students do when they get the Cuisenaire rods first, is I have them build me this ladder. And then we just notice and wonder. Now, when I first saw this, it was not in rainbow order, and I love rainbows. So I was not a huge fan at the beginning, but there actually is a color coding system that allows our brains to retrieve from memory what the values of the rods are. They are in centimeters, which means they match your base 10 blocks. So I highly recommend that you use Cuisenaire rods in the ones place rather than the base 10 cubes, because the cubes end up keeping kids in the counting phase of reasoning. I want to kick them into some strategy, thoughts, and number relationships. If you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, I did do a webinar last month on maybe it was October or November on addition, the progression of addition from kindergarten to grade 5 for Brandon Camp, and that is still available for you to be able to see. But so the 5 and the 10 are like a hot sun. So there's your benchmark numbers 5 and 10. These are all about number relationships and the relationships there. The red rod is worth 2 of those units, and it doubles to 4, which doubles to 8. And then the light green is worth 3 units, and that multiples of 3, 3, 6, 9. And then you have the 1 cube and the 7 cube as being black and white. So this color coding system will help. I promise you, the kids learn them faster than the teachers do. And the work mats you notice here, there are whole numbers. You can have it be decimals or just the letters. But I'm going to be using tonight, of course, the fraction mat. So what I built for you here is just a wall of some of these fractions. You'll notice what I did is I had only the whole labeled. So if this purple one is 1, that means the brown one must be 2, because I can line up 2 of the purple ones to show up. Well, I want to give you a second to think about what would be the value of each of these rods. So if this is the whole, if the purple is the whole, how much would each of the red ones be worth? So the thinking that I want the students to be able to do is to think, well, there are two equal pieces there. And I know that two equal sized pieces in a whole is called a half. It's one half. And so these must each be one half. So they can even record it right there. Here I have four equal sized pieces in a whole. So that those must each be a 1/4. Oh my goodness, what's this? Students have to understand that fractions can be less and greater than one. So even in third grade, we're going to be exploring fractions greater than one. And again, we do not call them improper. There's nothing not right about them. They're perfectly fine. Their value is over one. So if this is, is over one, well, what's a part of that? Well, right here is the whole. It's 1³ more than that, which is 1 more fourth. So I can write that as 5/4. And then, of course, at the top, this is worth the 2, right? So that's great thinking for them to be thinking about that. And the tools within the app that are super helpful is I can press label all. So I had chosen down below here to only label the whole, but I'm going to now choose to label all of them. And look at this. It shows you the fractional amount so students can get the immediate feedback. If they're working on this during the technology time within your, a center time in your classroom, they can be writing on here first to record their thinking, and then they can be seeing if they're correct, get that instant feedback. So you'll notice here that 2/4 is being shown. If I want that to show in simplest form, there is a button for that right down here. I can click on this, and then it'll go down to the simplest form. So I'll be able to show those. So that is super, super powerful. Now, what if I erase the ink here? And I'm going to go back to having it only labeling the whole. And I want to change the whole. Now remember, in the Fraction Tiles app, each app has its own special things it can do. In the Fraction Tiles, you're limited to having that red rectangle be a 1/2. I'm sorry, the red rectangle being a whole, if you wanted to see those fractions. In Cuisenaire rods, we can change the whole. So watch this. I'm going to make the whole be the brown one. Now I'm going to do this really fast. You can't see it. Okay, so if that brown one now is the whole, what are each of these worth? The yellow one looks a little crazy. I'm not quite sure yet about that, right? I have no idea. But I can see that with this purple one, I could line it up and get two equal sized pieces. So now the purple one is worth a 1/2. And then I can drag down a red, and there are 4 of those equal pieces. And so that's equal to a 1/4. And then I can complete my units here, these cubes. Well, that's 8ths, which means that this one must be worth 5/8. It's worth 5 of these units here, right? Now what I can do is now I can click label all, and now those numbers are appropriate to, and I'll go down to the simplest form. Those numbers are now appropriate for this being the whole. So that flexibility is the best thing that I love about this app. And I have not seen any other Cuisenaire rod app that can do nearly all the things in this app. That the Braden Camp app is the best one that I've seen. And I just love that flexibility to be able to do that. Now you do have a number line within here. You can't change as easily as you did in the fraction tiles of what you wanted the pieces to be. But what you can do, it's in terms of whatever you define the whole to be. So if I define this right now, the brown one is the whole, which means the number line lines up to be a whole, but I can change my whole and it will change accordingly. So again, you have this number line here within this, but you're seeing the fractional representation. This is moving our students now from that area model of fractions into that number line, which is a more abstract representation. And so finally, I want to go over a few more concepts. I want to show you the number line app. Then we'll go over some comparison and equality in the last bit of time. So we're already at quarter of, and I'm telling you, there is nothing elementary about elementary math. So let me get to this next code with the number line app that I want to show you. Again, all these apps are wonderful, and we want students to be able to experience all these different representations. It's not just one, right? They're all really helpful. They're all really wonderful and benefit the brain to see it in a variety of ways. Now, within the Numberline app, there are different work mats again. So I've chosen to be on the fractions work mat, but there is a basic one where you can change, whole numbers to whatever range you want it to be. There's decimals, and there's even an open number line within this app as well. But for just my purposes tonight, I wanted to show you the beginning here that, again, we want to have fractions as numbers for the kids. And if they're numbers, we can count by it. Not only can we put it on a number line, but we can count by it. So one of the best routines you can do in your class to prepare them for this. So if a third grade oral counting by unit fractions beginning of the year as part of your counting exercises. It's a wonderful book called Choral Counting and Counting Collections. And the choral counting piece is, primary level kids count by whole numbers, right? But in grade 3, we want to introduce the counting by fractions and decimals. We want that word form, the lexical entry into their brain. So imagine the kids coming into kindergarten and knowing their ABC song, right? They can recite that song orally, but they don't, many of them yet know the letters exist. They have a symbolic, letter written down that sounds like a certain way, and you could put them together to form words. Similarly, we want students to be able to oral count in the correct order and say those numbers. Then we attach meaning of quantity to those numbers, as well as the abstract symbol for the digits, right? Well, it all happens again with fractions. We want to begin by oral counting by these unit fractions. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, 5/4, 6/4, and keep going, right? The choral counting routine that I love would actually have you record them on the screen, and then, but beforehand, choosing how many you want in each row and column to see the patterns that emerge, and changing up how many you have in each row and column because different patterns emerge, and having students see that. And it's everyone saying each number all together. It's not a circle where one student adds the next number. I want every kid active all the time. And I want us all doing that together. And by writing the fractions on the board to keep track of those, more students will join in because they have that scaffolded support. So not only can we get that support for them, we can also then look for patterns, which is crucial. So in this work mat here for fractions, then I'd want to count by 1/4, and we can see what's happening here. I was able to put a jump of 1/4. You can, I'm going to just click on here for a second. I'm going to be dragging, I'm going to copy this one. So when I click on an object, I can copy it, and I can copy it all the way across. So I can be having these. So this is an abstract thing, right? So in our primary grade levels, rather than using number lines, research has shown that number paths help the students a lot. A number path is like a rectangle broken into the pieces, and then you have the digit inside each rectangle. So it's not you're having to hop the distance because it's more abstract. But in grade 2 with number lines, we can begin introducing that. And of course, then we're attaching the fractional meaning here as well. So you're seeing these are going over by 1/4. Down below, you'll notice the numbers are written in that fraction form. We have fraction form and mixed number form, and this is fraction form. And it's true that many of these fractions are worth more than 1. Some are worth more than 2. That's okay. Fractions are just numbers in a number line. And remember talking about what a 7/4 is. A 7/4 is 7/1/4, right? It's 7/1/4. So rather than calling it just 7/4, you can also call it 7/1/4 or 7/4, 7/4, right? So having this ability here then to be able to do that oral counting, keep track of the numbers, is going to go a far long way to get those words into the students' brains. But we also want to talk about the mixed number form, right? Well, down in the bottom left-hand corner, you can click on this button, and now you have the mixed numbers down below. So you can see here that you have the different representations of what you want it to be. You do have the ability here as well that you can be changing what you want to have. You can be setting a certain value. It would be putting it on there. You can have it as improper and decimal form as well. So there's lots of flexibility with this app. I had just chosen down below to have it go between 0 and 3. And then I just made one of those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete all that I just did here. So whatever you want to highlight, you have different options, and then you're always able to delete groups of objects. So I'm going to delete that for a second. And I want to show you this representation. So here you have a rectangle. It measures 1/4, and you're seeing it now on the number line. So here's again, another way for us to show the students that it can go from that area model of these intervals, that these different intervals here are making up a number. So for example, here I have, I have 3/4, 4/4, 5/4, but I've got this 1 and 1/4. If I would like, I can I can have down below here, I can have the different labels disappear if I want. I can have the even disappear down below and have the students tell me what must these numbers be. So you can really be increasing the rigor here in a variety of ways. And you can even have what these intervals are and then record down below how you want that to be. So lots of flexibility with this app. But one big piece of the puzzle here in third grade, we are still in third grade, not out of third grade yet. Which is why when I was a fifth grade teacher and I tried to practice with my students, I'm like, what is going on? Yeah, they didn't have this foundational understanding in. It just wasn't part of the wheelhouse yet, right? But so let's say here, so here I have, well, let's go down, I'm just gonna do like a 3/4. So if I have here 3/4, that can now be talked about as being 3/1/4, right? I have 1/4, I have another 4th, and I have another 4th. So in fact, I'm sorry, the handwriting is terrible. My actual handwriting is even worse. But so I have 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 makes 3/4, right? It's the same thing as 3/1/4. So connecting this to repeated addition, the idea, and this is just unit fractions, right? The idea of breaking it apart into other ways is a 4th grade standard. In 3rd grade, students can get to the point of having this 3/4 be known as 3/1/4. Now, this in grade 4 will become 3 times 1/4, using that multiplicative thinking and representation of 3 times 1/4. But we need to have this in place first. 3/4 is made up of 3/1/4. And you can have this, showing that interval, and then on the number line, exactly what that number is as well. So lots of work in there, and again, it takes time, it happens gradually. We want students to be able to explore that as well. And I know for myself, I had even thought to myself, the idea of, let's say, representing a whole number, 3/1, being a little strange. But let me just show you for a second. If I just go into just the number line. If I think about the number 3/1, if I have learned that fractions are, this numerator is the number of pieces that I have, and the denominator is the size of the piece, well, what would I have if I had 3 wholes? I'd have 3 wholes. So this, again, the numerator is how many pieces do I have, and the denominator is the size of the pieces. So it just all fits together to this beautiful progression. I want to touch base a little bit on comparison and equivalency, because it's only touched on in 3rd grade in terms of the easiest types of equivalencies, and 2, reasoning for comparison, and I'll be covering that. So first of all, I want to go back and get my code here for the equivalency. So exploring equivalencies. Now you saw a little bit of this in the pattern block app already, where we had some of those green triangles. Those 6 could fit onto the thirds, which is the blue rhombus. And so again, kids are going to be exploring and finding some equivalent representations within there. So here could be, I'm just going to get rid of that. Oh, that text keeps popping up. I'm going to delete that. So if you ever are wondering how to get rid of something and it's not getting a menu like that, all you need to do is put a rectangle around it, and then you'll be able to delete whatever the object is. Okay, so if we define, again, you can rename the whole to be whatever you want and then see how these change representations as well. But I like to have this one usually as the whole. How many ways can you make 1/2 using only the same sized pieces? Well, I also can do that transparent here. So if I want to do this, if I want to have like, here's the whole, and I want it to be transparent, that I could think, well, here's 1/2, right? So if I want to build that 1/2, and I want to do it in a variety of ways. So I know this is 1/2. Let me just get rid of that for a second. Now, can I use these pieces to make 1/2? No, I can't. Could I use these pieces? So yeah, I certainly can. These can fit just like this. And then I can even take this guy here and I can flop him on the other side, or I could rotate him around if I wanted to, and he fits in right there. And then I can be recording that 3 of those 6ths is the same as the 1/2. Right? Be able to explore and be able to see, are there any other ways, and how do you know, having them explore that? Super helpful. Also the rhombus here, you can fit 2 of the 6ths, so that 2/6 is the same as 1/3. And so you can be, having the kids play around with those and those equivalencies. So you want to have the simpler equivalencies of equal to a half and then equal to 1/3 and 2/3. And that would be a good start for the kiddos. Oh, I'm sorry. And the 1/2 too, I just showed, there also was the fourths, right? So you can also do these fourth pieces. 2 of those can fit into the trapezoid. And so again, it's just that exploration on the part of the kids and being able to prove it and be able to show it exactly right and to get those equivalencies to 1/2 in one way, right? And now I want to show you some thinking strategies. And again, you can be exploring equivalencies with any of the tiles, fraction tiles, Cuisenaire rods, but I just want to be able to show you just a couple more things. So first of all, I'm going to have a story problem here. I love putting a lot of things in context whenever I can for the students. All right, so I'm back in my fraction tiles app. I didn't have the numbers turned on. Delia ate half of her apple and Leland ate 1/4 of his apple. Who ate more? And explain your thinking. Now, typically, our students are expecting this to be assumed that the apples that Delia and Leland ate are the same size, but we can't assume that, right? So when we give students just numbers to compare and they're just the numbers, the assumption is you're talking about the same size whole. But in a story problem situation, we've got to pay attention beginning in 3rd grade about the size of the whole. Because the honest answer for this one is I can't tell you who ate more because it depends on the size of their apples. Let's say that Delia had this apple, which means this piece would be half of it because 2 of these could fit into there. Do I have the wrong one? Let's see, maybe it's that one. And so that looks like, yeah, 2 of them equal that one. And what if I had this guy? Well, this one would be 1/4 of it since 4 of them can fit. Well, this 1/4 of the whole is bigger than this 1/2 of the whole. So 1/4 is bigger than 1/2? Like what? But those discussions are so important. The discussions are important about we need to know that Delia and Leland ate apples that were the same size. If Delia ate half of hers and Leland ate 1/4 of his, then we can do the typical thinking that we would be doing with fractions and comparison. So just be aware of that. That is a part of the standards, is to understand that the size of the whole is so important. And then once we have those, there are 2 more ways for us to compare fractions. The other day on one of the Facebook groups that I facilitate, that a 4th grade teacher had asked about the butterfly method of comparing fractions. So if you know about the butterfly method for comparing fractions, it's actually something that I do not do with students because it is an illusion of understanding. It is a procedure. It's a trick. I love the document called Nix the Tricks. If you haven't seen that, it's Nix. It's called Nix the Tricks. We don't want to say things that are going to expire. Like when you say, and there's also another article called 13 Rules That Expire, same thing, that we don't want to use tricks. We want understanding, right? And so butterflies have no place in math class. In fact, Graham Fletcher mentioned that in his progression video as well. So, so here we have a couple of strategies and reasoning. We want students reasoning and thinking in mathematics. So if I'm comparing 2/6 and 4/6, do I have to, how do I know which one is larger, right? Well, it turns out that the denominators are the same. And we've learned by now the denominators are the size of the pieces. So I can grab 2 of these 1/6 pieces, and then I can drag 1 over and then click 3 times. These are my 4 1/6, right? And 4 of those 6ths is larger in amount than 2 of those 6ths. And so I can use reasoning. I can think about the same denominator. Now that's something that I was very familiar with as I was teaching. I know I did not do as much meaning of reasoning with the same numerator. So if I have 3/6 and I have 3/8, well, if I bring out 3/6 here, and then I bring out 3 of the 1/8, well, what do they have in common? Well, they both have 3 pieces, right? But the size of the pieces is different. So I can reason about this. I don't have to think about a lowest common multiple. I don't have to do any kind of equivalent fractions to get them to the same denominator. I can think, well, I have 3 pieces of bigger size pieces and 3 pieces of smaller pieces. So this one must be more. And we do want the students to be able to use the correct symbols as they do this work as well. Please don't do alligators. Alligators also have no place with the butterflies in our math class. I much prefer the idea of visuals. Berkeley Everett has a wonderful math visual site, and he's able to show in these symbols how you have when you're building that understanding in lower grade levels, that you have like cubes. If you put the cubes next to each other, it's going to be like fitting inside. You can visually see why that is. So no alligators in math and no butterflies. But we have this, they use these comparison symbols as well. So in third grade, we want students to be able to compare fractions by using reasoning with the same denominator or reason with the same numerator. That's it. Nothing more than that. Now in fourth grade, there are some more reasoning strategies as well. And one of them is going to be get it into a common denominator. So we'll go through that next month in part 2 of this series. I also do want to do another shout out to Christina Tondevold has a website called buildmathminds.com, and every summer she hosts a virtual summit. And Kristen Gray of Illustrative Math did a phenomenal session that helped me understand the K2 level of the foundational thinking going into fractions. I had known about the partitioning into equal sized pieces, but I had not thought about those composing of shapes. And so it's all in the standards. I just didn't know what the standard really was meaning. And so watching her summit session from Christina, unfortunately it's within the community, which is a for-pay community now, but I want to thank Kristen Gray for that thinking as well. So that was a lot of content, and that was just K3 content. So imagine what we can do when we are building a foundation of understanding with our kids. Will provide access to so many more of our students on their math journeys, and they can have journeys different from all of us. Not, shouldn't say all of us. 80% of us. I had a very positive math journey because I easily memorized and did my procedures well, but I didn't have the conceptual understanding. So we want the best for everyone. So thank you all so much for joining in tonight. It was a thrill to have you all here. The Facebook groups that I moderate, there's one called Build Math Minds. That's based on the work of Christina Tondevold, and she has that same site of that same name. And then I facilitate Math Running Records. It's a fluency-based Facebook based on Dr. Nikki Newton's work of Math Running Records to interview kids about their fluency. And I have my own called Elementary Math with Annalise as well. So thank you all so much for coming tonight. And let me get that, the link. I don't know if anyone had posted the link of the Word document. Did you happen to get that, Mark, the Word document of the share codes?
I did not. I only had the one that you and I were working on today.
Okay, I'm going to post that right for all of you before you go.
Okay, great. And then while you're doing that, Annalise, hey, I just want to thank everybody for attending tonight. Wow, that was amazing. Thank you, Annalise. Take the rest of the night off, because that was a lot of content, and I'm thankful for everybody attending tonight. Thankful for everything that you're doing in these crazy times, whether you're on site, whether you're virtual, or whether you're in a hybrid situation. So thank you for all you're doing and joining us on a Tuesday evening to learn more about not only fractions, but how Brain and Camp tools can help build that conceptual understanding. We did place in the chat the fractions part 2 is January 19th, 2021. So as we say goodbye to 2020, we can start out with learning more about fractions and fraction operations on January 19th. So check our website and we'll have more information posted on that. And I think that is it.
Hang on, everyone. The code was not shareable. So hang on. I'm going to make sure that anyone, you all can access that link to that share code. You also can email me, aer@annaliserecord.com. People have been asking about it being recorded, and yes, this session will be recorded to be available on I think Vimeo is where Brain and Camp hosts that, so you'll be able to watch that. I know that it is a lot, but please know I've been on this math journey for this deep math journey for like 8 years, and there were still things that I learned this week as I prepared for today. So it's just a journey that we're all on. You do the best you can until you know better, and then when you know better, you do better. That's all it is. Dr. Maya Angelou said that. So it'll be shared with you in the email soon, and then we'll get this recording shared with you as well. And so the share code doc, I just put it back in the chat. Again, that one should be available and be able to be shown. I did mention a Cuisinart webinar, but it's a workshop. I'm an independent consultant, and since March, I've been shut down. And so I put some of my trainings online. So on my webpage, annaliserecord.com, you can go to my webpage and access my courses. I have a course on place value K2, Cuisinart rods K2, and also a 3.5, and then also one on fractions essentials. So great, I'm glad that worked. Thank you, Melody, for letting me know. So that share code works, that document that has the share codes for you. And again, once you have them and you access it, you can change it however you want, and then you can get that new. Oh, I love, Crystal, that your daughter's name is Annalise. Oh, I love that. My workshops are not free because this is my livelihood, and my livelihood has been affected by the pandemic. So, but I think it's reasonably priced. I think it's reasonably priced for teachers.
And I saw about the quote about the fractions. It came from the IES report, which was published in from What Works Clearinghouse, which was published in around 2012. So I would have to dig that out. But the lights, camera, fractions, that was my own thing. So you feel free to use that one.
I'm noticing that the 45 days of braining camp code. What can you see what that code was? Oh, first half. Thank you,
First
Daniel.
half.
And also someone said to add my name to this t-shirt. I wanted to mention to you, I'm glad there's still several of you logged on, that this is a t-shirt that was created by Chrissy Newell and her daughter Cora. They began a hashtag revolution called Math Gals, MATHGALS. They were talking one day and realized that they didn't know many women mathematicians. And so they began researching it, and then they created t-shirts for themselves, and people began noticing them. And now you can buy them, and the proceeds are helping this revolution of understanding that math is for everyone, and particularly for girls. And so it's called hashtag Math Gals. So if you go on Twitter and type in hashtag Math Gals, you can find their site. And I just bought this particular shirt, but they've got different varieties now and different names of different female mathematicians from historical and current as well. So I did want to mention that. That's an awesome thing. Oh, thank you, Kathy. I'm so glad you're here, my friend. That's awesome. So Esther, Braining Camp, those codes do not expire. So when you create a code, it is yours. So keep track of it in like a Google document, so you can use it again the following year or share it with a colleague. Yeah, the Braining Camp does save all of the codes. So the ones I shared tonight, those are going to be there for you forever as well.
As long as you have a license to access them, correct?
Oh, of course. Yeah, you got to have a license. Yeah. What? Yeah. I was reading one of the chat had said about does it access the students as well? That code will provide you access and all of your students. It is not a kind of math program that keeps track of progress of kids or anything. So they only would have one username and one password. So it's not going to tell you when they share it with you who shared it with you. So I do have students put a text of their name so that I can see, oh, this person did this work, because at the moment that's not something that can happen. So.
All right.
And yes, someone's asked me to repost the link of the document, so I will certainly do that. Okay, now the chat goes fast and furiously.
It goes by fast. And a link for the recording will be sent out. I imagine probably tomorrow, as soon as we get the link from Zoom, we will be sending that out.
The edition one is still up as well. The edition one, the Cuisinart Rod workshop is at your own pace. The recordings that I made, so it's you watching it at your own time. There's no particular date and time, and they're up forever. I'm not taking them down, so you can watch it whenever you'd like. You're welcome to leave. Yes, I love being with you here, but yes, you are certainly welcome to leave. The code, I believe, doesn't expire for a long time, so that the 45 days you can wait to activate that. You don't need to do it. Well, no, I'm sorry. That's not true at all.
Right, you'll have to do that tonight.
Sorry. Never mind. Sorry, I totally misspoke. you need to turn on the code tonight. So within that, Lisa Ewing, with the making of the code, in every one of the apps on the left-hand side, there's a button that says share. And whatever is on your screen, that's what gets shared. So you would make on the screen whatever you want to have with text and manipulatives. Then you would click on that share button and click on the getting the link. You either can get a picture of it, you can download it as a picture, or you have the orange button to get the share code and it's right there. And then you just copy it. Sure, my Facebook group is called Elementary Math with Annalise. Thanks, Becky. So glad that you were here, my friend.
All right, well, it seems to have calmed down a bit. Hopefully, hopefully folks were able to copy the links they wanted. Again, this will be recorded. I think in the recording, you can open the chat. You can see the chat as well in the recording. Do you know that, Dan, offhand?
I don't think the chat is available in the recording,
okay,
unfortunately.
Yeah, there's a lot of good information in this chat.
There is. Well, yeah, we'll have to try to find a way to get it out somehow.
Yeah.
I think that it does automatically record the chat in your folder of the Zoom meetings.
It does, but yeah, once you take it to
it's
video,
posted,
it doesn't have the chat anymore.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay. I guess we got to wrap it up at some time.
122 people are still here. That's awesome.
Yeah. So for those of you still around, come back for more. We're going to do this again in January. Annalise will be back. We have a Braining Camp 101. That's just a very basic intro to the manipulatives. If you're kind of an early user or first-time user, or you're just trying to figure out what the manipulatives do. But otherwise, we hopefully will see everyone after the new year back for more of Annalise and her fractions.
And someone was asking about a cost for my training. If you happen to purchase Braining Camp for your school, part of what I do now in my consulting work is to do trainings for the schools for Braining Camp. So you could get me for free. Well, kind of by free if you get Braining Camp app, and I'll begin provide some professional development for your school. I am an independent consultant, so you could hire me. I don't do those for free because it's my livelihood.
But it's well worth it. I mean, you can tell that Annalise is very knowledgeable and a great presenter. It's definitely something that I know we hear great feedback from when customers do receive training from Annalise. When she does it for Braining Camp, it's mostly focused around Braining Camp, but if you wanted her to present on any other topic, just get in touch with her directly and you can figure out if it makes sense for you all to work together.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate that. Serena, the iPad app does look different at the moment, but there's going to be an update coming soon that will make the iPad look the same as the browser. So for now, yes, it is different, but hang on, it's going to change soon.
Right, and the good part about that update is it won't make it look the same just when we release it, but it's going to allow us to keep them synced. So going forward, the iPad app will continue to have all this, or we'll start having all the same features that the web version does. All right, well, thank you very much, everyone. Depending on when we see you again, have a great end to 2020, and let's hope 2021 is the start of wonderful, positive things for everyone. So thank you, Annalise. We really do appreciate everything that you share with us, and let me thank you on behalf of the 500 or more people who joined tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right, have a good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.